Did you know that police can track your location using your phone without a warrant? Fog Reveal is a controversial software being used by dozens of police departments in the US, according to reporting by the Associated Press. It can pinpoint where you've been and track your movements over months.
In the United States, the Fourth Amendment is effectively dead.
And so far, Fog Reveal has collected billions of records from over 250 million phones. But how does it work? We all have apps on our phones that require our location, from a GPS like Waze to the Starbucks app. Many of these apps also show us ads that are based off of our location and our interests. To do that, each device is assigned an advertising identification number. Using that ad ID number, Fog Reveal then takes all that location data and sells it.
If police aren't acquiring warrants before using a service like Fog, that's essentially buying their way around the Fourth Amendment.
If that doesn't sound right, you can actually disable or reset your ad ID on iOS and Android in your privacy settings. Even if you never commit a crime, what police are calling your pattern of life is now up for sale. Do you care?
So this TikTok by Technality points out the reality that police officers have been finding a sneaky way to get around the Fourth Amendment. And basically what they've been doing is they've been saying that they don't need a warrant if they can buy this information. If it's privately accessible just by purchasing it, well, then it's not really a Fourth Amendment violation, is it? Because it's something that's up for sale on the open market. And this is something that the police departments have been using across the board, and it's led to extreme invasions of privacy. Another layer to this that's really important is that police officers also have access to a technology called stingrays, and stingrays, which many police departments across the country have been using, can actually also track your phones, can intercept things like text messages. They basically pretend to be a cell phone tower, intercept the signal, and are capable of tracking your location and accessing a ton of data on your phone. Police officers also use that without a warrant, which oddly enough doesn't use the free-to-purchase loophole around the Fourth Amendment that they've created for themselves. But there's so many layers to talk about this. First and foremost, private companies are collecting a ridiculous amount of data about you, and they are selling it. And the second is that law enforcement agencies are purchasing all this data and have the ability to track people. And one of the reasons why this is so terrible is because police officers have been using technology like this specifically to track down and target activists and protesters who call out acts of police brutality. In fact, in some instances, police departments have actually got caught harassing the victims of police violence. People who've been killed by police, their families will often face an extreme degree of scrutiny from police departments. And this is all at a time, mind you, where the percent of murders that are actually solved has dropped significantly. It actually turns out that police officers have very little interest in doing real investigations into real crimes, and instead are focusing basically all of their time on harassing random innocent people. And the reason for that, to some degree, is really simple. Because one layer to it is that murderers are scary and police officers are cowards, so they would much rather go after random innocent people and journalists than they would actually bother to really do investigations to people who have committed violent crime. But another layer to this is the harsh reality that, look, our police departments are literally swarming with white supremacists. They're literally swarming with these over-the-top right-wing extremists who are using and abusing their power to target people that are their political opponents. And there's plenty of data to back this up. And not only are they targeting political opponents, but they're also disproportionately targeting black and brown folks, once again, for no reason. In fact, despite what many people in the United States believe, a research that was done by Harvard and covered by The Root actually pointed out the reality that black folks in America are actually not more likely to commit crimes, believe it or not. It is simply that they are so much over-policed that all of the data is skewed. But when you really interrogate the data, you realize that it's just that black and brown communities are incredibly over-policed. And this type of technology makes that even worse, because as somebody that was a military intelligence analyst that actually did some of that pattern of life work, I can tell you very clearly that it is incredibly easy to take pattern of life data from somebody and make it seem like it's suspicious when it really isn't. The military does that with great regularity to justify killing random innocent people around the world. And police officers are doing the very same thing in the United States to arbitrarily target random innocent people and effectively frame them for crimes. They will just use pattern of life data to create artificial stories about what people are really up to, and then they'll use that as a justification to constantly be hounding and harassing people, and usually they'll end up stacking up random parking tickets or stacking up random speeding tickets to the point where people will literally find themselves in prison, not because they've committed some sort of extreme offense, but because they've just got a handful of traffic violations that have stacked up on itself, and then turned in and escalated into a bigger crime. And so the solution to this problem actually takes several steps. First and foremost, we have to put in strict controls over what these giant companies are allowed to do with our data. We need to make sure that we have real privacy laws that are rigorous. And we even need to go one step further and start to question the ways they use algorithms to predict our behavior. Because it's my personal opinion that collecting a bunch of data about somebody and then using an algorithm to predict their behavior is, in a sense, a violation of the Fifth Amendment. Because you are trying to, in a sense, replicate somebody's inner thoughts with a machine learning algorithm in order to sort of get people to confess the crimes algorithmically. And so fundamentally, I think police should not only be barred from accessing all of this data without a warrant, but I also think they should be barred from using ridiculous prediction algorithms to try and essentially create future crimes departments, which unfortunately is something that is already happening across the country. But another layer to this is that fundamentally, we need to do something about the police. We need to take a bunch of power away from police, put in place tons of scrutiny towards these police officers, and we need to severely reduce the police department's budget. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, when you have police departments that are so bloated that you have tons of police officers that don't know what to do with their time, it ends up structurally working where basically no police officer is actually focused on any major crime, and they're all instead focused on harassing random people in the public. That's why, for example, in Minneapolis, their current strategy is to just have a ton of empty squad cars parked around everywhere and have police officers perched up outside of random targets. Meanwhile, actual violent crime goes completely uninvestigated. And this is happening across the country. In fact, there's a lot of research to show that when it comes to crime statistics and data, the police just straight up lie and will create completely fictitious stories about what crime is and isn't happening for the sole purpose of pushing their political goals at the ballot box by artificially creating a bunch of fear about crime that isn't happening, while at the same time having an over-the-top presence to make it seem like tons of crime is happening, while at the same time also not doing any investigations of the crime that actually is happening to make people feel vulnerable and unsafe. All of those things together paint a picture of a police department that is not interested in safety, that is actually just interested in military occupation and political control.